I'm not going to lie to you, kid. It's not looking good for Jaron Boots Ennis. In this video, I'm going to break it down and let you know what Jaron Ennis did that got the whole world in the game of boxing talking and not really in a favorable light. So grab your seat, grab your popcorn, and let's get it. Now, it really hurts me to say this because Jaron Boots Ennis is a fighter that I enjoy watching. I like his style. I haven't been shy about that. I let y'all know. In fact, I put people on Jaron Boots Ennis. But on my channel, it's facts over feeling. And at the end of the day, I got to keep it real with what I'm seeing. And I feel like for some of the reasons that I'll outline in this video, Jaron Boots Ennis, he's being looked at in a bad light. It's not that he's a terrible fighter. You know, see, the difference between me and a lot of people is they can't control their emotions. And that's a weakness as a man if you let your emotions dictate what comes out of your mouth. And unfortunately, boxing is a passion sport, so you see it more often than not. Like some people, they're like, oh, Jaron Boots Ennis, he ain't this and he ain't that. He's still a great fighter. It's just that the decision you and your team made, how it played out, doesn't look good. And I'm not going to get into too much detail because it doesn't really matter regarding the Virgil Ortiz fight. The bottom line is it looked like they had potential to get it done. And because of Jaron Ennis's team, the fight didn't get done. And that's just a simple way of putting it. And it's not even so much that the fight couldn't get made because that's boxing. That happens. It's how it played out. And I think that's what got fans looking at Jaron Ennis sideways, right? If you wanted to fight at 147, I feel like that should have been declared from day one. So Virgil Ortiz's team can be like, that's not going to happen. Our fighter can't make that weight safely and healthy. You wouldn't get the best version. So it's not going to happen at that particular weight. And then both parties could have just moved on. But instead, we got this long charade and public negotiations, which I hate, to the point where it made it look like the fight was on the verge of happening. We even seen reports that said that they have a verbal agreement. So the fans were ultimately let down. And when they're let down in such a fashion, I feel like fans, I just told you, fans can be emotional. They want blood. They're looking for answers. They want to know who they can blame. So the person that looks most guilty is going to get that. And unfortunately for Jaron Ennis, it looks like it's his side. You know, he did himself a disservice by talking. And I tell you, the most dangerous thing is a camera and a microphone. Jaron Ennis said too much after his last fight with dazn. He said, I don't know if I can make 47 anymore. I think it might be that time for me to move up in weight. The world knows he's a big welterweight. I've been saying that for years. You look at some of his pictures working out, he just looked big. He looked like one of the biggest welterweights that we've had in the last 5 years, right? In terms of his frame. You see him next to other people like Eddie Hearn, who's tall, and he doesn't look as small as some fighters would in that same situation, right? And he said, I want to move up. He said, yeah, I will fight at 54. And that's what you got to do when you want to be great. Then what happened? And like I said, it wouldn't even be that big of a deal if you're transparent from the beginning and say, hey, I got more work to do at 147. Fair play. But the way it was done, I think that got people real riled up. And the card that it was supposed to be on, just got announced, and that made it worse. It made it worse because now that the card is official, everybody seems to be enjoying the card and liking the card, the fights that were announced. Now people have the perspective of, man, it should have been Virgil Ortiz versus Jaron Boots Ennis also on that card, which would have been a very nice addition. And it would have made more sense. The person they got for Virgil Ortiz is Israel Madrimov. That's a good fight, but I don't like the setup, and I talked about that. Israel Madrimov is fighting late December on the Usyk Fury card, and then 60 days later, he's going to be back on the card in another tough fight. That's crazy. And just the fact that Israel Madrimov is willing to do that makes Jaron Boots Ennis look worse. Yes, he's a 154-pounder, so he doesn't have to move up. But to go from fighting Terrence Crawford to Sergey Boachuk with the 96% knockout ratio, who really beat Virgil Ortiz, in my opinion, to then, if you get past Boachuk, fighting against Virgil Ortiz, I mean, you have no choice but to, even though I don't like the movement, as a fighter, you got to respect the fact that he has that much confidence that he would take a schedule like that. You also had Xander Zayas, who's very young and hasn't fought anyone remotely on the level of like a Virgil Ortiz, and he agreed to the fight. So the people on this card are also making it worse for Jaron Ennis, because you see what Madrimov is doing. Back-to-back-to-back tough fights. You see that Xander Zayas was willing to step in, and it's not his fault he didn't get selected. He was willing. That's what matters. And then you also look at Kid Austin, Floyd Schofield. Same kind of concept. William Zepeda was out. They said he was injured. He's with Golden Boy. So he said, Oscar, put me in the game, coach. And pretty much begged his promoter to consent to him fighting Shakur Stevenson, which to me is a fight where I'm favoring Shakur Stevenson. We'll see if he can prove me wrong. But credit to him for having that type of faith. And I think that's why Jaron Ennis is looking bad at the moment, because this is the behavior what these other fighters are doing. The Schofields, the Madrimovs, the Xander Zayas, what they're willing to do, I think that expectation was right there for Jaron Ennis, because he had hype train behind him. A lot of people rocking with him. A lot of people said he was special and he was next up. So you want to see the moves that would prove that. So it would have been an awesome opportunity. And then now you have Virgil Ortiz's team saying, we'll never revisit a Jaron Ennis fight. You kind of gave him a backdoor out. Plus, who knows what will happen with all these fights, to the point, like, what if Virgil Ortiz loses to Israel Madrimov? So, you know, this one move, it might be a wrap for that fight, which is a fight that people wanted to see for years. Virgil Ortiz and Jaron Ennis. That's why these decisions and risks, you got to be calculated, but you got to do what's in your best interest as a brand, because some of these opportunities might not present themselves in the same exact way. Let me know what you guys think. Ego Thoughts. Subscribe to the channel for all your boxing news.